Old Testament history.
King Hezekiah of Judah.
King Hezekiah reigned possibly between 741 to 687 BC. He was the 13th king of Judah. His father, King Ahaz, had worshipped and sacrificed his sons to Moloch. In rabbinic literature, Hezekiah's mother saved him from being sacrificed at the hands of his father to Moloch. During his reign, Hezekiah abolished all forms of idolatry and destroyed all of the high places that his father King Ahaz had put up during his own reign. He is considered a righteous king and helped in bringing Judah back to following the Lord. Hezekiah attempted to resume the tradition of Passover and invited the scattered tribes to take part in the Passover festival. The messengers that he sent to the tribes weren't listened to and were even laughed at. Only a small portion from some tribes went to the feast. In spite of that, the feast was celebrated with great solemnity and such rejoicing as hadn't been seen since the days of Solomon. Judah, since the time of Ahaz, was a vassal state of Assyria. Hezekiah rebelled against the king of Assyria, however, during his own reign. This rebellion took place during a rise of anti-Assyrian rebellions in the Levant. King Tiglath-Pileser had conquered most of these vassal states during his reign in Assyria. The kings after him maintained the rule until rebellions like those that King Hezekiah led. Hezekiah reclaimed territory and land that went as far as Gaza. There was no king of his like in Judah before or after. He saw the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel at the hands of the Assyrians, and God spared Judah from the same fate. He was known as a wealthy king and for expanding Judean territories. He also is believed to have compiled some of King Solomon's proverbs.
The Taylor Prism.
The Taylor Prisms was one of 3 prisms that were found in Nivea. It was found by Colonel Robert Taylor in 1830 in Nivea, which was the capital of ancient Syria under King Sennacherib. There are 2 other prisms that, more or less, detail the same events. There is an ongoing debate between historians about which account is true.
As for Hezekiah the Jew, who did not submit to my yoke, 46 of his strong walled cities, as well as the small cities in their neighborhood, which were without number, by leveling with battering rams and by bringing up siege engines, by attacking and storming on foot, by mines and tunnels and breaches, I besieged and took those cities. 200,150 people, great and small, male and female, horses, mules, asses, camels, cattle, and sheep without number. I brought away from them and counted as spoil. Himself like a caged bird I shut up in Jerusalem, his royal city. Earthworks I threw up against him. The one coming out of the city gate I turned back to his misery. The cities of his which I despoiled I cut off from his land. I diminished his land, I added to the former tribute, and laid upon him the giving up of their land, as well as imposed gifts for my majesty. As for Hezekiah, the terrifying splendor of my majesty overcame him, and the Arabs and his mercenary troops which he had brought in to strengthen Jerusalem, his royal city, deserted him. In addition to the 30 talents of gold and 800 talents of silver, there were gems, jewels, large sand dune stones, couches of ivory, house chairs of ivory, elephant hide, ivory and ebony, boxwood, all kinds of valuable treasures, as well as his daughters, his harem, his male and female musicians, which he had them bring after me to Nivea, my royal city, to pay tribute and to accept servitude. He dispatched his messengers.
And his servant spake yet more against the Lord God and against his servant Hezekiah. He wrote also letters to rail on the Lord God of Israel, to speak against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people out of my hand, so shall not the God of Hezekiah deliver his people out of my hand. Then they cried with a loud voice in a Jews' speech unto the people of Jerusalem that were on the wall, to affright them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. And they spake against the God of Jerusalem, and against the gods of the people of the earth, which were the work of the hands of men. And for this cause Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amos prayed and cried to heaven. And the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of face to his own land. And when he was come into the house of his God, they that came forth out of his own bowels slew him there with the sword. Thus the Lord saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib the king of Assyria.
It's this miracle that is greatly disputed. There are several scholars who list off different reasons why the Assyrian army was driven back. Some list plague or mice. The prism does not list any sort of loss on the side of the Assyrians. Scholars say that it isn't unbelievable that the Assyrians wouldn't want to declare their own defeat. It remains one of history's unsolved mysteries, the question of why Assyria pulled back their armies without taking Jerusalem, especially since King Sennacherib had already taken other states so successfully.
The Bible, the Prisms, and the Babylonian Chronicle, among other historical texts, all detailed the murder of King Sennacherib at the hands of his own sons in the temple of one of his gods.
The toilet debate.
The Israel Antiquities Authority excavated the 3 southern chambers of the gate to Lachish. They discovered what appeared to be the remnants of a double altar that had been damaged. At the back of the altar, they found a stone block that seemed to resemble a toilet. It is theorized that this was done to desecrate altars during the reforms that took place during the time of King Hezekiah. This was also a known biblical method of desecrating shrines according to the Bible, when something similar had been done by King Jehu of Israel. Some archaeologists, like David Osishkin, a retired professor from Tel Aviv University, object the theory. He said that there was no altar at the site, so it couldn't be connected to the reforms. He doesn't, however, make a theory on the subject of the toilet. Sabine Kleiman, a researcher at Tübingen University, agreed that the finding was an altar, but that the time period could not be confirmed to have existed during the Assyrian attacks.
Salome Tunnel, or Hezekiahs Tunnel.
First discovered in 1625, this finding wasn't connected to Hezekiah until 1871. Biblical archaeologists suggested that the pool Salome had been dug by King Hezekiah. In 1884, the Salome inscription was discovered. The translation of the inscription, a record of the construction, and the lettering appear to be dated back to the 8th century. The tunnel is located in eastern Jerusalem, and its function is believed to be an extra aqueduct made to keep any overflow of water from Jerusalem's main water source in the city. King Hezekiah built this in preparation for a siege from King Sennacherib of Assyria. There have been challenges regarding the dating of the plaster. However, the Bible does refer to King Hezekiah building a tunnel and bringing water to the city of Jerusalem.
Hezekiah's Broad Wall.
The Bible mentions that King Hezekiah expanded territories, and the motive for this construction is believed to be in preparation of a possible siege from Sennacherib's campaign in Judah. In the 1970s, Israeli archaeologist Naaman Avigad unearthed an ancient defensive wall. His dig ran 65 meters, and the wall is preserved to the height of 3.3 meters and 7 meters thick.
King Hezekiahs Seal.
During the Ophel excavations, which were led by Dr. Eliat Mazar, the seal of Hezekiah was found. The bulla bears a seal impression depicting a 2-winged sun disk flanked by Ankh symbols. It also has an inscription that reads, belonging to Hezekiah, Ahaz, king of Judah.
This bulla was found not far from Hezekiah's seal. Its left side was damaged, but the name Isaiah is clear. The remains of a grazing doe can also be made out. Dr. Eliat Mazar and her team say a reconstruction of the damaged side could more than likely show the rest of the letters, which could possibly spell out, belonging to Isaiah the prophet. Isaiah prophesied during the reigns of several kings of Judah. He was also advisor to King Hezekiah.
Lachish Reliefs.
Lachish was known as Judah's second city after Jerusalem. In 701 BC, King Sennacherib took the city during his 46-city campaign, according to his prism. These reliefs were discovered by Austin Henry Leonard during excavations in 1845 through 1847. They were found in Nivia, modern-day Iraq, and are now housed in the British Museum. They are dated to have been carved between 700 and 681 BC. A room in the southwest of Sennacherib's palace had the reliefs covering an entire wall, and they depicted in vivid detail his taking of the city of Lachish. Historians are unsure of why Sennacherib chose this battle to display with such prominence in his palace.
And that's just some of many ways the Bible lines up with history.